Okay, so we are live. So hello and welcome to all of you to our fourth episode of Vartalaap, which is Mental Health Battle for All. And I am Shreya Sinha, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Uh, so I'll be the moderator for today's session. And a little bit about me. I am the team lead for the Dan Prodhan program of Teens of God. And it is basically a membership program that aims at making monetary contributions to the lower strata of our society or the underprivileged people. And we do so by providing service and and the other educational programs. We at Teens of God are committed towards our work and have launch various projects like Project Afsar, which aims at providing jobs for the unskilled labor, the Sushiksha program to educate the underprivileged kids, and there's a lot more in store. So you can check our social media platforms for the same and join us. So moving on, today we have a wonderful dais with distinguished speakers. So for their introduction, uh, first up is Miss Urveez Kakalia, ma'am, and she's a counseling psychologist and the founder of Imperfect, which is a mental health center, and it is basically a counseling and psychotherapy organization in Mumbai. And she has worked with varied clients, and she her aim is to uh, reduce stigma attached to the process of accessing mental health services. Then we have Miss Sugandha Kaushik, ma'am, who is a certified addiction psychologist and a community mental health worker. She has a experience of 6 years under her belt as a psychologist, and she has worked in prestigious organizations like Sri Aurobindo Society and Sophia Girls College, Girls School, and last but not the least, our third guest speaker for the day is Miss Bhavika Mehta, and she's currently a third year student pursuing BA program in sociology and English at Sri Venkateshwara College, DU. And she's also the founder of Happy Company, which is a brainchild, and goals to their main goal is to reduce mental health issues in India. And also I would like to welcome all of the viewers today that have joined, and I hope this session clears all your doubts and myths about mental health. And yeah, so let's begin. Yeah. So this session, okay, let me brief you about this session. So this session includes questions clarifying a lot of aspects pertaining to mental health and the stigma around it. So we will also be opening the floor for questions if the time permits towards the end of our session. And the speakers, they're free to share any anecdotes or useful tips during the session. And yeah, okay. So let's begin. For I will like to start with I'll open the question to any of the speakers. Like, how do they define mental health and what it means to have a good mental health? Any of the speaker can share.
I think to me, good mental health is, I'll answer the second part of the question. To me,
Okay.
good mental health is going to sleep and not having trouble sleeping, like going to the bed and falling asleep. So that is my, aim. At the end of the day, I want to lie on the bed and I do not have, I just want to fall asleep. So yeah, I think I leave the first part to both the esteemed guests because I think that's their forte and they'll be better equipped to.
Yeah.
That's actually quite a great point because most clients will, say this and they think that this is the problem in itself, whereas, it takes a lot of education for them to see that this is just a symptom of an underlying mental health concern. So it's great that you've just said that, and that is one of the symptoms. So obviously being symptom free would be the aim, to have good mental health, but you could be symptom free and still not have good mental health. So I think it's more in how you're evaluating your own mental health, and if you're being able to go about your daily activities and really function well in life, whatever that is according to your own definition, then I think that's the definition of good mental health for me as well.
Okay. And Sugandha, ma'am, if you have anything, what good mental health means to you? Sugandha, ma'am, are
Health
you?
has so many
Yes.
aspects.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Now you are. The video freezed for a second, but yeah, you're back.
Okay, okay, okay. So, what I think is anything that makes you feel good about yourself is a part of your mental health as well. You know, if you are earning good, if you are very famous, but you are not fit mentally, if you are having these unhealthy thinking patterns, then you will not be healthy mentally. So, anything that makes you feel healthy, and as both of them said, you are able to sleep well, and if you are not having problem with your sleep cycle, that is actually a big sign of having good mental health.
Yeah, very well said, ma'am. Even I agree to that. So now we will be discussing agenda wise. So as we have already posted on our social media platforms, we have a speakers list of what do you say, pointers that we are going to be discussing today. So the first agenda for today's session is clues to identifying mental health concern. So this question is for Urveez, ma'am. Uh, like we have seen that self-diagnosis using internet blogs and illegitimate tests has sharply risen. So, what are the necessary replacements of this problematic and irresponsible approach to mental health?
I think the reason that this becomes a problem is because they're not standardized tests, and of course we don't know that when we go online. We're like, oh, do I have, say, a depression or an anxiety test, right? We don't realize whether the test we're taking is a standardized one, is one that's well tested and well researched, and that's why it creates problems because then it'll just give you some sort of label, and that could either be a deterrent for you to seek help, or it may not give you the right amount of understanding of your concerns or your distress. So again, it's going to deter you to from taking help and seeking the necessary assistance. So I think that's why this is a problem. If it was guiding people correctly, then that would be just perfect, but that's not what usually happens. A lot of my clients say to me, oh, I did this personality test and this is what it says, right? And it's again the reason that the test is not enough, even if the test isn't incorrect, is that you have to corroborate that with clinical evidence. So a trained therapist would need to um, have all the other history and all the other data that is relevant to that person in order to say whether what this test is saying is really true or not and applicable or not, and then appropriately offer therapy to that person.
Would you say that those tests are completely baseless?
No, so not all of them are. That's what I'm saying. Some of them are really good tests, which are very well researched, and they're freely available as well. So they are online as well. So those are the ones that could really indicate to you whether you need to seek help or not. But then again, if based on the test, if your symptoms aren't severe enough, again, that brings us to the point that just because you don't have a diagnosis, it doesn't mean that you don't require assistance for your mental health, right? A therapist could be helpful to you in so many ways. I have a few clients, not too many, but I have a few clients which come and say, you know what, there's no problem as such, but this is something I want to work on. So they're coming to work on growth. And that's a very real thing that we can help with as well, which people still don't know or don't acknowledge. So, yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Adding to that, we have seen that often denial forms a major part of identifying one's mental health concerns, which results in minimalization of issues. So, is there a way to not fall into the trap, and pretend that everything is good? Uh,
So I think this has to do more with the societal stigma in a broader sense as well. And again, gender roles here play such a big role because, especially when we say, oh, you're not supposed to cry. Why? Because, you're a boy, you're a man. And this is, I'm very glad that this discussion has come up a lot because I think Men's Day just went, International Men's Day, and they were talking a lot on social media about men's mental health. And I was really happy to see that, right? So it's a step in the right direction, I think.
mhm. Yeah. Then I think yeah, that pretty much sums up that how do we identify mental health concerns. So moving on to the next agenda, which is the second agenda, which is a little technical. It is an REBT approach, which is rational emotive behavior therapy approach. So I would like Sugandha ma'am to address this one and tell us what are the basic techniques of this approach that can be applied in our daily life to regulate our emotions or healthy emotions, how to regulate healthy emotions basically.
Shreya, first thing is that any form of therapy, for that matter of fact, can only be given or should only be taken with the help of a professional. So, as there is, there's a lot of content online, there are a lot of things that you can just easily search, and there are many students who come to me and they tell me that there is CBT, there is REBT. So, first thing is that you should prevent yourself from self-diagnosis and then, implementing all these things on yourself just by reading. That's the first thing. The second thing is that REBT focuses, it's a philosophical way of, understanding what are your unhealthy ways of thinking, how, what are the thinking patterns which are actually acting as a hindrance in right decision making, in actually reacting to difficult situations in a way that can be rationalized or a proper way of reacting or making decisions. So, REBT helps us to understand the unhealthy thinking patterns. It mainly focuses on basically the negative emotions that we all have, and the professional helps works in collaboration with the client to help the client to understand what are the negative emotions and how what we need to do when when we know that these emotions are taking power over us. Okay, so these things should be done in collaboration with an expert only and not by us own selves. So REBT will focus has a philosophical approach of dealing with our unhealthy thinking patterns. So we all may have, see, psychology is all about individual differences. We have our different ways of thinking, we have our learning experiences, our past learning experiences, which actually determine our actions. So, the psychologist or the psychotherapist will work in collaboration with you to understand what or which technique of REBT they need to apply or they need to actually use in there, and then how to mold it and how to make the treatment plan or how to change it as the um, therapy progresses. So it is a very professional or scientific way, I would say, to go with therapy, and to actually understand all the things. When you go to a therapist, the therapist will not only psychoeducate you, will also make you understand how much time it will take, what are your unhealthy thinking patterns, and how we are going to go ahead with it. So I'll not say that you can do it or I can do it on my own. There may be very general ways of understanding mental health problems, what may be my risk factors, coming from what background, or coming what may be my risk factors. You may have different risk factors, so that will be only done once we have that initial session, and once we actually identify risk factors, maintaining factors, then preventing factors of a particular problem that you go to the therapist with.
Yes ma'am, true, that
Yeah.
true. And I think yeah, that was a very technical approach to it. I hope our viewers could relate. But yeah, I totally understood that. And so yeah, let's move to the next agenda. That is the third agenda for today, which is accessibility to mental health services. So which is like the major concern for all of us, especially in India. And this section, I would like Bhavika Mehta ma'am to address this one. So the first question that we have is that there is ageist stereotyping of mental illness, and which has caused problems like attribution of depression only to the young generation, and as well as normalization of dementia. So, how can such a narrative be controlled and mental health care be made more accessible to the older populations as well?
Right. So, what I have seen and experienced in the last few years when I've been working in this field. So I'm sure Sugandha ma'am and Urveez ma'am have a lot of experience and they've studied psychology. And I have only learned empathy, and I we work on empathy. So what I have seen in these 2 years, and please correct me if I go wrong anywhere. Please feel free to do that. Is we need to communicate uh, everything about mental health that we read on the internet to our parents, to our grandparents. We need to bridge that gap, and we need to educate them about how we are feeling, because it is a concept that is very alien to them. This is what I have realized when I talk to my parents and people who are their age. So when I told about my organization, my NGO, to my parents and to people their age, it was a shock for them. I'll share an incident. I went to Bombay for this conclave, and I shared a cab with this man who was in his 50s, and he asked me, where are you going? And I like to have those short conversations with anybody I talk to, and I told them that I'm going for a conclave on mental health. So mental health मतलब भूलने की बीमारी, उनने मुझे ये पूछा. This was the phrase that he used. Mental health का मतलब क्या? भूलने की बीमारी. नहीं, फिर मैंने उनको बैठ के बताया कि अंकल नहीं, डिप्रेशन होता है ना, आपने सुना है ये टर्म. And you won't believe, he was a banker. He was working in PNB and he was 50 years old. And he associated the term mental health to, losing your memory. And उनने पूरा न्यूरोलॉजिकल समझा उसको, साइकोलॉजिकल नहीं समझा. उनके लिए टर्म साइकोलॉजी एलियन था. And after working here, I realized this is the case with a lot of people in India. We are privileged that we had access to these terms. We are privileged that our parents also understand what depression is, but this is not the case with everybody. So as much as it is important to talk on the internet about mental health, it is also important to talk about in your house, in that four wall, between those four walls where you're most afraid to speak up. वहाँ पे उनको कन्विंस करना कि दिस इज व्हाट इट इज एंड दिस इज हाउ यू हैव टू टेक केयर. आप योगा करते हो, आप दवाइयाँ खाते हो, आप सुबह वॉक पे जाते हो, you do all sort of stuff for your physical health. What do you do to uplift your mood? What do you do to make sure that your emotions are balanced? Talk to them about it, even if they're perfectly fine. Tell them how they can improve their emotions, how can they channelize it better. Because right now I think there is a stage in everybody's life, एक term होता है 60 में सठिया जाना. What is it? Because when a person grows old, these are such terms which are used बहुत ages से, पर उनको ना हम एक सोसाइटल चीज मानते हैं. हमने उनको हॉक्स माना हुआ है. बट क्या इसका सही में कुछ रिलेशन है एज के साथ? When you grow old, do your emotions also fluctuate? Because I see them fluctuating in my life every day. When I turned a teenager, I could see a havoc of emotions in me, but nobody told me that it is because of the biological changes I'm going through and it has something to do with psychology. Nobody at the age of 11 told me that this is going to happen. So similarly, they at 50 do not know this is happening, right? So it is important that we communicate it to them, because we got to know about it from the internet or from the wokeness that is around, and it is so important. So वो communication वहाँ पे बहुत ज़रूरी है. And जब हमारे पास कोई आता है ये लेके कि और our parents don't understand, right? So it really हमें बहुत prick करता है कि यार हम यूथ को तो एजुकेट कर पा रहे हैं, बट हाउ डू वी रीच दोज पीपल? बिकॉज फॉर देम सोशल मीडिया इज ऑल्सो नॉट समथिंग दे आर वेरी एक्टिव ऑन. इंस्टाग्राम इज नॉट समथिंग दैट दे आर यूजिंग. सो ये हमारी ड्यूटी एज चिल्ड्रन, एज द यूथ बनती है कि वी गो टू देम एंड वी टेल देम दैट this is what it is, and I'll tell you about it. It is my responsibility. The way I'm teaching you how to use this phone, I'm also going to teach you about your mental health. It is as simple as that. Also, we have to initiate this conversation in our colleges, to our professors, to every sphere that we go to. And जिस तरह we have talked about yoga, talked about taking care of our physical health, because meditation, spirituality, all of this is on a rise right now. Everybody wants to take care of their physical health. Gym memberships are on a hike, but what are we doing for our mental health? So this is also that we have to start. And I think the best way to do this is revolutions begin at home, and start talking about it at your houses.
Yeah, very well said. And I'm also going to start doing that. And since we are nuclear family, so my parents and just me. So yeah, but I'll surely, in my college, I'll start conversations about it and help whoever I can. As we all know, a prison's background is one that isn't like, even if like for example a prison or a mental center where people actually go mad, if you put a normal person there also, he's more likely to go mad because of the environment that he's staying in. So now pertaining to the prisons, that now that I've mentioned it, uh, that we know that prisons in India do not provide for sufficient mental health care services to the inmates. So, what are the structural reforms that that are needed to ensure the accessibility to those people as well? So, yeah, I
Hmm.
want Bhavika ma'am to address this one.
All right. So, over the last 10 years, I've also been associated with another organization that I saw went to Tihar and did a lot of programs on breath and meditation. So, that is something that I saw, and I read about it in sociology also. I'm studying sociology, and I think it has helped me a lot. So, inmates are being taught life skills that they can use. So, the perception that we have of jails is very scary. The perception that I had of jail was very scary because it is built by Bollywood. It is built by, what is shown in the popular media. But it is very important to actually see what is really happening there. What are the resources? And honestly, I haven't researched a lot to comment on it. But as much as I know, there are life skills that are being taught. There are anybody who has to be, I think, released is taught a certain skill set that they can use once they are released out of jail. And there are also spirituality and religious classes that are taught. On mental health, I haven't really heard about anything, but I think the way that there are doctors available around, there should also be psychologists and psychiatrists sitting there, because it is a very traumatic experience, right? So it is very important.
Mhm.
And all I think crime is also very psychological phenomena. The very fact that you did something that led you to do something is very psychological, right? So if we cure that portion, if we take them to a psychiatrist, give them proper help, that also reduces the chances of them going out and committing that crime. So it is also very important to introduce this concept to our government, that this is a
Mhm.
psychological phenomena. And that, I believe, is the most important, telling the officials how important psychology is. Because as much as we are going to shout about it, it is them, and we have to push them to do this. It is their
Mhm.
responsibility to understand that this is the way out of reducing crimes, right? Also, preventing them at the first place by providing education, by providing you know uh, access to healthcare and education. I think these are the two ways that I see the solution of almost every problem that I can think of.
Okay. Now, one more community that we must discuss is the LGBTQIA plus community. We have seen that the practices like practices like conversion therapy continue to go on. And what are the some queer affirmative practices that can help make therapy more inclusive and accessible for that part of the community?
Right. So, I personally believe in not taking up spaces. This is something very, very important to me, and it might sound ironic because I am not a professional and I'm working on mental health. But I really want to make it clear. Even at the Happy Company, we do not take spaces of professionals. We are very straight up. We always tell people, if anybody we think needs therapy, and I also believe everybody needs therapy, but anybody who can access it and need it, we tell them straight away that you need to go see a psychologist. But we also empathize with them. So yeah, saying that, when we talk about the LGBTQI community, I think it is very important to sit down and let them take the center stage, listen to how they
Mhm.
want their problems to be solved. Because we keep providing solutions for them, we speak for them, and that is what triggers them the most. Because the all the people from the community that I have interacted with, their only issue is you are taking up our spaces. Like the whole scene around the movie that just released, Lakshmi. uh,
Mhm.
every trans person that I talked to had an issue that why is a cis heterosexual man portraying the character of a trans a person, right? So that is what, I am not very good with pronouns. I'm not very good with everything around that community, because I haven't studied it in depth. And when I have not studied it in depth, I do not want to take up the space and say something wrong. I would let them and their experiences talk. So this question, I would want that I would want to ask them, what is it that you want us to do? How do you want to be how do you want us to be your allies? How do you want us to, what are the stance that you want us to take? And with that, I also believe that we should have more queer affirmative professionals. We should have more safe spaces for them to open up, and that is something we should do.
Yeah, even I agree with you totally that yeah, we should give them their space and let them speak about it. Now, with that being said, we'll go on to the next agenda for the day. That is the fourth agenda, which is role of education in mental health. So I want Sugandha ma'am to address this one. So the first question is, in our education system, it we basically fail to engage with students in terms of emotional well-being. They are taught all sorts of subjects from mathematics to even environmental studies, which are really important. But what about emotional well-being?
Shreya, if you would have asked me this question few years back, I would say it's a complete no, yes, because when we were in school, we didn't even know what mental health means, unless and until we read in that WHO definition that there is a word like mental health. So that was my first introduction to mental health, and we didn't have psychology as a subject, and we still don't have psychology as a subject in many schools. So students don't learn or get to read this subject at their grade 11th or 12th level as well. So it used to be a lot of struggle. But then the change that I'm seeing, or the schools that I have got the chance to work with, I have seen that, yeah, the general awareness is there, but then there's a lot of stigma and taboo attached to it. There is a counselor in school, but students don't want to come to the counselor because there is always this fear of, getting judged, or always this fear that you are a grown up now, you can handle this problem all by yourself. Why do you need to go to the counselor? There are schools where they don't even hire counselors, or counselors do not have their own space, personal space, wherein they can uh, come and bring and talk to the students there. So there are many challenges, but yes, emotional well-being, there are schools which I know which are teaching social emotional learning now to the students, and the main thing is it has to be integrated into the education system. Unless and until we integrate it, and it has to be a part of each and every subject, it's not just only one teacher or one counselor going and talking about it. As Bhavika said, unless and until we normalize talking about mental health things, you can never ever create that awareness, no matter how many therapists you have, no matter how many help groups you have. So no matter how many NGOs work towards it, unless and until you normalize help seeking behavior, it's okay to seek help. So emotional well-being will only come when a child knows that, okay, there is someone in the school who can help me out with it, or even if there is not someone, but I should talk about it. Maybe that is a problem that my uh, other classmates are also facing, so maybe I'll become their representative in that scenario. So that is one very important thing. And I think once the teachers, or once the authorities, once the stakeholders, once the um, staff starts talking about it, especially in schools, so students get motivated to talk about it. Many years back, we didn't even know what bullying is. Raging used
Hmm.
to be such a thing in colleges. Students have committed suicide because of it. But now, thanks to many groups, or thanks to many communities in schools and colleges who want to work towards mental health or creating that general awareness, so students emotional well-being is directly proportional to how much acceptance they get in that particular, community that they live in, be it their school, be it their houses, be it their friend group, wherever they are going. If a child comes to me and says that I'm being bullied, I do not say no, there is no such thing as bullying in our school, you are lying. So I am discouraging help seeking behavior. What we will do, what we can do, that is another thing altogether, but I am discouraging help seeking behavior. So first thing in mental health comes is encouraging help seeking behavior. As Bhavika said, we are taking up their space. All they need is acceptance. They know how to fight for themselves. They know they have accepted themselves this way. They want us to accept them. So we don't do that. We try to give them solutions. You can do this, you can do this. So empathy is one main most important skill that we all should have as human beings. It should not be just limited to mental health professionals or people working in this area. It should come from each one of us, so that many issues do not get stigmatized, or many there are many issues, or why is there so much taboo related to mental health issues? Because we just judge, we do not empathize. We do not have to give a solution, but we can lend a helping hand or a crying shoulder to the person who has come to us or sought us in their times of distress. So emotional well-being for students is directly proportional to how open we are, talking to them about mental health problems, how we are normalizing help seeking behavior, and how we are making it sure that okay, whatever you are coming to us with, we will be hearing to you and we will be listening to you. What we can do and what we cannot do will be another thing, but we are here to listen to you. So you should be open and you should feel free to come and talk to you. That is the first step towards emotional well-being of students. Because students don't know actually that they have any problem. Many students, they just walk in and they will just tell, ma'am, I don't know, I'm feeling this way. So psychoeducation and all these things will come in the process of educating them, but then you have to first of all listen to them and make it sure for them that yes, you are listening and it is confidential and it is not going out of this room, but then you are safe here, it's a safe space. So you have to create a safe space for them. So that is one majorly important thing when it comes to education system. And sadly, there are many schools which do not even have counselors in school, or there is no such ambience wherein the students can talk about mental health problems openly. So that's where we actually need the help of NGOs or many groups which can actually help in generating this general awareness about mental health issues.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I totally agree with that. And yeah, there was this point you mentioned that kids themselves don't know that they have some mental health issue. So how to make them, be aware about it? That.
See, when you talk to students on mental health problems, the first thing is we do not have to get very technical. So that's what actually I practice in school, because once you start getting very technical, or so they just lose that interest. One thing is you have to take in examples. Okay, something if something of this sort happens, then you can come to the counselor. So I take up examples of what generally they may be feeling or going through in school, like bullying or low self esteem, examination anxiety. So I pick up these examples, talk to them about these, taking up these examples, and slowly and gradually they'll start relating to them. Okay, yeah, this is a problem, and maybe I never knew that this is a problem, or this is actually acting as an obstacle for me to perform well or to achieve my goals, or to actually make some goals. So I'm actually taking social emotional learning classes in my school. So I just take up basic examples from their life, wherein they don't see it as a problem, but then it may be a problem, like responsible decision making you have. Then you have social awareness. A child says that, ma'am, I'm very shy. So they don't know that it can be a problem, later, wherein in today's world we need we know that communication is actually the most important thing, has become a very important thing. So that personality trait can actually become a problem later. So I try to connect basic things. So when you talk to students about mental health, talk about basic things that happen in their life. Okay, are you stressed about your exams? Are you feeling nervous because tomorrow you have to give a speech? Are you feeling stressed because you couldn't study. So pick up these general, you will create awareness by talking about their life and general topics. You cannot create awareness by talking about psychology, theories, personality theories. You will never create awareness like this. So you have to make it very general for them, like it is like you talk about fever, you can talk about mental health issues as well. You can go to the counselor
Mhm.
and you can talk about these things, and this should be completely normal. So it will only be coming by talking. Communication is the key. You have to talk about it, and someone will have to bell the cat. So the student will never know, so you have to go and talk about it. So, and then you see how they open up and how they recognize their own weaknesses, or how they want to talk to you even more. Okay, now I have this problem and I never knew that this was a problem, and they approach you. So that is actually um, a big change. So that is how you can spread general awareness wherever you are, by talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Well said, ma'am. So let's move on to the next agenda of the day, which is two continuums of mental health and mental illness. So, Urveez, ma'am, this question is like directed towards you. Is that people often fail to demarcate the essential difference between a mental health issue and mental illnesses. So, can you elaborate on the universality of this mental health concern? Because mental health is, we just confuse mental health and mental illness, so how do we tell the difference between the two?
Hmm. That's a great point because, like we were saying before, those online tests would probably just give us like a label or a diagnosis. Firstly, the big question is that even appropriate and required? Even if it is, it's just seeing it from this one perspective, right? What if you don't have symptoms that are severe enough to have a diagnosis? Because that's what a mental illness, that term entails a particular diagnosis of whatsoever kind, right? Just because you don't have a condition or symptoms or distress which are severe enough to warrant a diagnosis, it doesn't mean that you have good mental health, right? So there's two different continuums. It's not a single continuum from mental health to mental illness, right? It's not that you can be on either one side of the spectrum. It's two different spectrums here. So you could have less mental illness. So you're not mentally ill in terms of a diagnosis, but you're not mentally healthy either, and that's when therapy can still help. So the in the general culture and in general society, again, due to the stigma, due to the language that we use, it's very often only seen as a single continuum. So we need to introduce this concept. It's almost a new concept that we're again educating people about, that even if you're not mentally healthy, even if you don't have a mental illness, you can still seek help, and you should do so for your own mental well being.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because even I used to confuse between the two, and now that, one second, yeah, one second, yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Yeah, so even I used to confuse between the two, and I think that answers it. Now, moving on to the next agenda for the day, that is correlation between poverty and mental health. So, I want Sugandha ma'am to address this one. Uh, how can socioeconomic exclusion be related to mental health deterioration? Because, those people don't have the access to, even think about mental health, because they can't even take care of their health. So, how do you want to answer that?
See, Shreya, so when we talk about the biopsychosocial model, it's a bit technical though. So we actually, check in all the risk factors. So people belonging to SES groups, so low socioeconomic status groups, they actually they are already at risk because they belong to that part of the society wherein they are struggling day in, day out for their survival. And survival is one of the basic needs. If you don't get to meet those needs, then how will you go further to the safety needs, or how will you go further to other needs? on the level. So first thing is that these people are at high risk. Then there's a lot of, they do not even have money for accessing uh, things which require them to live. So how do you expect them to come to a counselor or a psychologist or a psychotherapist, even if that is for free? They don't see it as a priority. So one thing
Mhm.
is that, first thing is, as we all have been talking about, is you have to create that awareness. We have to go door to door. We have to create that awareness so that they know if they are feeling tired, if they are feeling weak, if they are not getting feeling interested in the activities that they used to do, or day to day activities, or if they're feeling very sleepy or not sleepy at all. This can be related to their mental health problem, to any of the mental health problems. So and this can be actually a sign, or it can be alarming sign for them to understand that there is an onset of a mental health problem. So how do we do that? One thing is that we have to create that awareness. Second thing is, the language that we are talking to them in should be very very simple, and should be very very easy to understand. If we go there and start talking technically, and start talking, that okay, you have to seek treatment and all this, they will never be interested, because they survival is their main agenda. So they'll not be interested in all these things. So these people are at high risk. But then it is our responsibility, because they will never come themselves. What we can do as a community belonging to other levels of society, wherein we may be privileged, more privileged than them, what we can do for them is, providing counseling services. Or then we have government hospitals wherein these treatments are easily accessible and are at very low rates. But then how to actually tell them to go there, how to actually motivate them, how to do that change talk. So that change talk is one very important thing. You have to do that change talk, you have to motivate them, because they are already at risk. And low socioeconomic status directly corresponds to high levels of stress, high levels of anxiety, high levels of improper decision making, because they are already devoid of many important things in their life. So when they don't have this, it directly corresponds to all these mental health issues, like having high levels of stress, so which directly is related to mental health illness if not dealt with at the right time, or not intervened at the right time.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, we know that the low income group people face issues like, contractor insecurity or family separation. Someone moves from their village to a new city. So how do these issues have to be, handled? Should they be handled?
Can you please repeat the question, Shreya? I could only hear the last part or the last line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. The like we know that poor migrants face issues like, family separation when they move out of their villages, and the contractor insecurity. They don't know if their job will stay or not. So how do those concerns have to be handled?
Shreya, see, first thing is that when these migrants move from their own town to a city, that is a big change for them. They have never lived in that, in an ambience or an environment like that. Everything is so glamorous for them, to be very honest, all around. And then um, it gives them a lot of stress as well. How will they cope up with this whole new change, coming from their town to a city, having a lot of adjustment issues as well. Then they have problems of jobs insecurity, they have high levels of stress already, they have that burden or stress of feeding their families. So then sending money to their family, so they are already under a lot of pressure. So as I said, it's not only it should not only be limited to the groups or the NGOs, or mental health professionals. It should be for everyone. The people who hired them, they should be empathetic enough to understand their problems and causes. The people whom they are working with, they should be able to understand what their problems are. So what we can do as a community should matter. We can make a mass change when we all come together and work towards major causes like these. So when the migrants come, so they should know what are the places for me to go to when I feel very stressed, rather turning to alcohol, or rather than turning having improper having having hobbies or activities that can actually become lifestyle problems later. So they should be aware enough to know where I can go to seek help, because even if a person belongs to middle class or upper middle class, there are problems or there are things that they cannot handle all by themselves. So everyone has problems in their life, everyone has several problems in their life, so we all should know this, where we should go to seek help. So this comes from general awareness. If I'm not aware that this thing is a problem, then I will never go, and that will always be a taboo and always be a maintaining factor of that disease in me. I will, maybe for the whole of my life, I will live with that particular high level of stress and high level of anxiety, because I don't know I can go somewhere and seek help. So it is for everyone. This goes for college students as well, students who are going to colleges very far off from their houses. So this goes for everyone. They should know whom we can approach, and this comes from general awareness and some sense of like, I want to make this change in my own self, or I want to approach a counselor, or I want to approach someone who can listen to my problems. So this change we have to actually bring in, and that is help seeking behavior. Help seeking behavior is the key. Unless and until you tell me what your problem is, I will never get to know. And counseling, counseling is not about giving solutions. I cannot drag you and bring to my cabin and tell you that, Shreya, you need help and I will help you. No, it will never work unless and until you yourself walk in and you say that I want to bring a change now. So this has to be done. It is a two-way road, it's not one way.
Yes, ma'am, I agree with the statement that you made in the end, and also the whole thing, of course. Now, that brings us to the last agenda for the day, which is the role of language in the stigma around mental health illness. So, Urveez, ma'am, I'd like you to, throw light upon this agenda. So, I have this question related to it. That is, the casual use of mental health terms has done major harm to the progress been made in the recent years in terms of awareness, and they invalidate the experience of those who actually suffer from these conditions. So how has that contributed to the widening of the treatment gap that we see?
Right. So because it's used so casually, so I think the most commonly used word that is used casually is, "Oh, I'm so depressed," right? No, you're not. Right? You're probably not. And if you think you are, then either to a psychiatrist or to a therapist and figure out if you actually are. If you are, then there's help, right? But if you're not, and you're just constantly using that phrase with people around who may actually be experiencing serious mental health distress, then they're going to feel like, oh, she's depressed too, but she's not doing anything about it. She's not seeking help. She's dealing with it by herself. Yes, she can deal with it by herself because she's using it as a word. Or a lot of times it's not entirely wrong to use depressed as a word because it's also an emotional state. It's not always a diagnosis. But again, we need to educate about that difference, that you can be depressed right now, right? Something's happened. I'm feeling depressed in the moment. Fair enough. You're not wrong to be using that, but make that clear, right? If you have depression as a diagnosis, or if you have depressive symptoms, then you're not probably going to be able to deal with that completely by yourself. Again, depending on the severity, you may be able to, great. But if we can't, and then if we're just casually using the term, then we're preventing people who are actually having distress from seeking that help. And again, with the role of language, saying things like, I actually even have a problem with the term mental illness. I know I was saying it before, but that was to make a different point about the mental health and the mental illness being two different continuums, right? But even the illness or the disorder, right? When you're giving that as a label, so if you're saying an anxiety disorder, right? It can again prevent a person from then seeking help because then it's a disorder, and due to the stigma involved we don't seek the help. But it would be so much better if we would use words such as distress, difficulty, right? And it doesn't invalidate it, it's a more inclusive language, it's a more accepting language, I think. it shouldn't be stigmatized, even the disorder and the illness words. But since it is, we need to find a way to work around it so that the people who are experiencing distress can get to the help that is again available, but they're just not getting there to it.
Yeah, ma'am. Also, we have seen that a lot of suicides happen, and in their note they say that I was depressed, and that's why they do such things. So, like, does misreporting of suicide with insensitivity towards mental health add to the stigma associated with it, or and how can this be changed?
It probably does, right? Because then it becomes a very direct jump from, okay, mental health distress to suicide, right? And then, of course, the insensitivity with which we talk about suicide, and even simply saying something like, "Oh, he committed suicide," and now the narrative we're trying to change it to "died by suicide," which makes it more humane and inclusive again. So I think that's again language really, really important just to deal with the stigma part of it. Um, but of course, when it's reported in the news, in the media with insensitivity, and it's more allegations, if there's no evidence for it, and then you're still saying it, then of course people then have a completely different idea about what even mental illness is. Right now, dying by suicide is um, highly indicative that the person may have been suffering from depression, right? But the way it's talked about, it doesn't help people seek help. Even if they're having suicidal thoughts, it's not getting them to approach someone to say, okay, look, this is happening. This can be a symptom of my mental health distress. It's that connect is not happening because of the misrepresentation of it in the media. So hopefully, there's more sensitivity around how it's reported, like you said. Again, that goes back to the education point, like my other two speakers were saying. Just the more societal inclusion, reducing the societal stigma behind it, is that's key.
Yeah, totally. Because yeah, the way we have seen the news recently and how it's being portrayed. So yeah, I totally agree with it. And one more, like I think, yeah. So I think language in stigma, yeah, does play a big role because we misrepresent things and it doesn't really come out that well. Uh, Now I would like to open if what's the time? 4:22. So I would like the audience if they want to ask questions to our speakers. So yeah, let's see. Is the comment section visible to you? Yeah. So anyone who is willing to ask any questions to our speakers can do so. We'll just wait for people to ask. Okay. So I don't think so. Like, yeah, we have covered major portions. So, and we didn't use any jargon. So I guess that's why there's no questions. Okay. So yeah, so that brings us to the end of the session today. And uh, if the speakers want to share something, what they expected and how this session came out, they can do so. The floor is open.
It was wonderful. Thank you for organizing this, and it was such an informative session for me as well. Thank you, Sugandha ma'am and Urveez ma'am. It was really
Thanks,
informative,
Evan.
and thank you, Team Support, for organizing
Yeah.
it.
Uh,
Same here, Shreya. So when you are, a part of a panel, it is always like, you're listening to other professionals as well. When it is only you, it is just like, you are only listening to your own self, what you are saying. So it's good, they are working in this field and they have their own experiences. It's good to know what their experiences have been and what strategies they use to, create general awareness and talk about these things. So it's very good. Thank you so much, Shreya, for having me here.
I
Thank
agree
you,
with
ma'am.
this last point that both of them made to the T because I think this is my first panel discussion. I've done a lot of lives and webinars and whatnot, but that was always me listening to me. And this is extremely informative. It's great at bringing in different perspectives on the same issue as well. So thanks so much for having me, and I hope that everyone watching and whoever watches it later as well does seek help whenever required and does also contribute to playing a role in destigmatizing all the topics that we've talked about and just mental health in general.
Exactly, and the
Yeah.
major takeaway should be just talk about it. Talk about mental health, even if people think that you have yourself gone mad, but then talk about it. Talking about it will actually create awareness, nothing else.
Yeah, I agree with you, ma'am. So, on behalf of Teens of God, I'd like to thank all our speakers today for taking out their valuable time and providing great insights and helping us all understand mental health better. And I'd also like to thank all our viewers for joining us today. And and I hope you guys had a great learning from this session of Vartalaap. Also, anyone wishing to join Teens of God can or donate to us can reach us at our social media platforms. We will be delighted to have you in our team. uh, I also look forward to having more sessions like this with Urveez ma'am, Sugandha ma'am, and Bhavika ma'am in the future as well. And so thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, good day ahead.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.